Good morning, Comrade. You are watching Good Morning Comrade now. You're watching us on YouTube and Facebook. Goodmorningcomrade.com, patreon.com/Good Morning Comrade. I really pulled some boomer moves this morning, didn't I? Um, I I woke up in a really foul mood today just because of all the stuff that we kind of have to go through. I'm pretty honked off, but then I started playing that Mega Man 2 music, and I don't know, that got me feeling a little bit better about things. Um, but now I'm just reminding myself that times were once good, and now they are bad. And maybe they were never actually that great, but it certainly feels some kind of way. I feel some kind of way about it, and that's probably not helpful. That's like nostalgia. Maybe it's the nostalgia for the Mega Man X2 music. That's one of those games that I played like from when I was a little kid. Like, geez, let's see here. That game was like 1992, I think. I was probably 8 years old when that game came out. If I'm even right, that might be even before that. Whatever, not that big of a deal. Let's see, Mega Man 2. When did Mega Man 2 come out? Wow, I was way off. I was off by 4 years, 1988. Well, I didn't play it until probably around 92. But it was one of the good ones. I don't know. I really like the Mega Man X games. Regardless, nobody came here to see that. Tough for me to talk about that. Let's talk about U.S. imperialism because guess what, folks? The U.S. is back to doing what it does best. The U.S. is back to doing an imperialism, and I have some thoughts on it because I saw some really shockingly bad takes um about it as well. So just to kind of go through it, here's a report from NBC News, which is the liberal media. Yes, I know, but it's one of the few places where I can get some straight facts on this, at least to work from, if you know what I mean, to start talking about. We can get into more analysis as things go on. So Joe Biden on Thursday ordered airstrikes on buildings in Syria that the Pentagon said were used by Iranian-backed militias in retaliation for rocket attacks on U.S. targets in neighboring Iraq. Oh, it always is retaliation. It's always we're on the defensive. We're not like it's never the case that we're at fault. We've never done anything wrong ever. Like we're the good boys in America here. This strike killed at least 22 people. Excuse me. The strike kills at least 22 people. London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said on Friday, citing unconfirmed local reports. Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby portrayed the bombing in eastern Syria as carefully. It was a surgical strike. We made sure we only killed 22 people, calling it proportionate and defensive. They always fucking do that part too. They always do the thing where it's like, oh yeah, we responded exactly at the level that that the other side did. The people that attacked us, we only killed 22 people. The operation was the first known use of military force by the Biden administration, which has for weeks emphasized plans to focus more on challenges posed by China. That's right, we have to take China. Whatever, like the idea that we have these enemies that we have to destroy, like in terms of foreign policy, as opposed to the things that we have in the U.S. Okay. What Biden's doing right now is crazy. Absolutely 100% crazy. But let me make y'all feel slightly better, okay? Make you feel slightly better because Amy Siskind, who is a high-profile liberal on Twitter specifically, she says that, so different having military action under Biden. No middle school level threats on Twitter. Trust Biden and his team's competence. So this is exactly what I talk about when I talk about MAGA. When like Democrats want to do that thing where they, good morning, G Wolf, where they essentially, want to excuse anything that Democrats do, no matter how bad. It's cult like behavior, where they're going to back up Joe Biden when he's, bombing Russia. And I mean, I'm sorry, not Russia. I beg your pardon. Bombing Iranian, quote unquote, Iranian militia in Syria, firing rockets on Iraq. Like, why are we involved in any of this? Why are we involved in any of this stuff? This is like 9/11, like remnants type thing, and this is U.S. foreign policy gone insane. Well, I say gone insane like it's always been the case that it's been like this. I don't want to like dwell on this too long because I mean, obviously, I don't want to. I don't know all of the particular dynamics of all of these particular things that are at play here. What I'm trying to say more than anything is this is more of the same. More of the same of what we always get when Democrats come in. They're the ones that smartly manage the empire, and when the Republicans get in place, they are the ones that like maniacally wield the empire. And there's no, at least not in the mainstream, effort or force that is interested in rolling back the empire. U.S. hegemony is assumed as the sort of natural state and course of things, and if anything gets in the way of that, it's considered to be not real. So so really, I mean, if you think about it, the position of not even in the framing, I mean, that's part of what the NBC's job is here. They frame this, they frame this as proportionate. They frame it as defensive. They frame it as, all of these things that are, virtuous or whatever, but they don't ever criticize the role of U.S. empire because they're a part of it. Like the U.S. press has a part in the empire. So if you're defending this, you're blue MAGA, buddy. You're blue MAGA. And this is where this is why rather when we have situations of when Republicans it's like make bad faith cases of saying like, oh yes, we want to stop doing wars because it'll save us money. People buy it because Republicans are just shameless liars, of course. So are Democrats, they are as well. However, like they have some patina of truth or some patina of at least like leverageability. Like I don't want to like give these people too much credit, but they can essentially lie and make these kind of like, oh well, I'm the anti-war Republican arguments in bad faith. But when the reality is that there's no anti-war position in the mainstream, the only thing that you can do is, change that dynamic. And that's not happening with what we have here. Who I have to look. I wonder what AOC and Bernie have said about this because typically, well, if I don't want to like self on the spot here a little bit. See Bernie, Syria. I know he did a part of the problem here is what Bernie's talking about more than anything right now because he's a senator. He's super highly focused on, and he's also the chair of the budget committee. He's super highly focused on something we can be talking about in a moment, which is a big limitation, to be clear. I'm looking at his Twitter. I don't see a comment. Let's see, Ilhan Omar. Really like kind of doing this, almost fishing for something. Yeah, unfortunately. Well, interesting. So here's Elon's timeline. Also, what is the legal authority for strikes? This is from Jen Psaki. She's like retweeting her. Assad is a brutal dictator, but Syria is a sovereign country. What is the legal authority for U.S. strikes? Great question, says Ilhan Omar. I guess that's all we're going to get from her. Yeah, it looks like it. That's disappointing, but I mean, again, this happened last night. Hopefully, we get some high profile photo. I mean, you can't look to politicians, regardless for particularly to show leadership on this thing. They kind of have a tendency to lead from behind. But this is something that we need to get as many people out in front of as possible. Now, I do want to sort of like switch gears. So, yes, the U.S. spends so much money on military. That is a problem. That is true. And what we don't spend that money on, or what we don't focus on, is American people. So one of the things that Joe Biden promised to us as a part of the COVID relief package has been the $15 an hour, even if it's something that's phased in over several years. And this is something that he's like lifted from Bernie Sanders even. And excuse me, something he lifted from Bernie Sanders even. And that's good. The idea of raising the minimum wage is great. The idea that like these people put out these reactionaries and conservatives put out the position that raising the minimum wage to $15 would be bad for business is not borne out by any kind of evidence that it's happened anywhere that they have raised the minimum wage. It's actually helped the economy. More people have more money to spend, so the economy gets stimulated. So that's just a big old line of BS. But anyway, the way that this is almost like I feel silly that this is a headline, because like there's this process in the Senate called reconciliation, where it's like one of the few times a year where you can get legislation passed related to a budget that doesn't need to clear a 60 vote threshold in the Senate, which is like brings up a bunch of questions of like, why is there a 60 vote threshold? What the hell is a filibuster? What's going on here? Anyway, every part of the reconciliation bill has to be like connected in some way to connected to the budget. Excuse me. And in the past, there's been sort of like a loose interpretation of that, right? So this is from Mike Consul. Well, I can bring up my console in a minute. Well, anyway, the parliamentarian in the Senate essentially like is the person that makes the ruling on this, apparently. And the parliamentarian has ruled that a minimum wage in the COVID relief bill would be against these specific rules that are put forward. The Senate parliamentarian had ruled against including the increase of the minimum wage in the COVID relief bill. They're saying that it can't be a part of this process. So it can't be a part of the bill. You need to take it out. While Democrats had pushed for the increase to be included and leadership expressed its disappointment in the ruling Thursday evening, its removal may actually make it easier to pass the bill. Senior Democratic sources believe, because it'll avoid a messy fight over whether to strip out of the bill and strip it out of the bill and whether to compromise. This is a compromise. This is a huge loss. The fact that people are still going to be working for poverty wages is a big problem. Here's Jen Psaki, who's the press secretary, professional liar. President Biden is disappointed in this outcome as he proposed having a $15 minimum wage as part of the American Rescue Plan. Why? He respects the parliamentarian's decision and the Senate's process. I'm going to call a huge line of bullshit on this right now, because the way that this, and I'm going to kind of get to that actually in a second, but the way that this was at least reported in the media, the way that it seemed that Democrats came out and said things. It's like, oh sure, we really really hope the parliamentarian rules in our favor on this. Otherwise, can't do it. Just no, can't do it. It's just them's the rules. And Mike Consul, who is a economics guy over at the Roosevelt Institute, he had this to say on Twitter. Wild how the because this process of reconciliation has been around for quite some time, and it's been wielded by both Democrats and Republicans. And Mike says, wild how the parliamentarian and reconciliation process will let things through like Arctic drilling or the fever swamps, restoring Americans' Healthcare Freedom Act, which was a repeal of the ACA, the Obamacare, but not things that help everyday workers, like a $15 minimum wage. I remember thinking Dodd-Frank was fully safe from being killed in reconciliation. With Dodd-Frank was a bank reform bill, a finance reform bill that was sort of implemented after the 2008 financial crash. I remember thinking Dodd-Frank was fully safe from being killed in reconciliation until I learned how a conservative would unapologetically attempt to use nonsense CBO, Congressional Budget Office, and OLA scores to do that. It takes 60 Senate votes to build something with a filibuster, but only 50 to kill it. So, yeah. If they can just throw in things like Arctic drilling, or if they can throw in repeals of the ACA, which are both terrible things. I mean, we decided that we can just go send or allow U.S. companies to go drill for oil in the Arctic. What does that have to do with the budget? What does that have to do with the U.S. budget? Repealing the ACA. What does that have to do with the U.S. budget? But when it comes to a $15 minimum wage, can't do it. Can't. Sorry, that's going to help too many Americans. So that's sort of where we're at in terms of the parliamentarian. Let's just kind of read in here and just kind of get mad and mauled a bit. For now, far from being a defeat, the ruling is viewed as clearing the way for the bill's passage in the Senate, and the Biden administration, a Biden administration told CNN. So, that part too is shocking to me. They put this forward in the reconciliation bill, and it was a contentious part of it. In the budget bill, it was $15 is something that is extremely popular. More of a higher minimum wage is extremely popular. And they put this idea forward. And now the Biden team is like, yes, they cut it. They cut it because now it's going to go through. It's not contentious anymore. All we needed to do was cut off the good part of the American system. And you know whose fault it is? It's a damn parliamentarian's fault. It's the damn parliamentarian's fault. So nobody has to take the heat. They put it on a staffer in the Congress, in the Senate. Great job, guys. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Thursday evening the provision will remain in the House bill, on which the chamber is voting Friday. However, the parliamentarian ruled that the increase to the $15 per hour did not meet the strict set of guidelines needed to move forward in the Senate's reconciliation process. That means the House will pass its bill. The Senate will have to strip the minimum wage provision out. And then eventually the House will have to pass that bill again at the end of the process. So they're essentially shaving that off and passing that, saying they have to pass it individually. And when you do that, when you introduce any good legislation into the Senate, guess what happens to it? Essentially, it dies, because that's what the Senate is for. The Senate is an arcane, hundreds of year old institution that literally is there to put the brakes on anything good that ever happens, anything that would actually help American people. The Senate is there to kill it. It is the graveyard of legislation. Dems love losing by the rules when Republicans change the rules. I mean, that's a great way of putting it, G Wolf. Another way of putting it, I think, would be that, I mean, the Dems, they love losing by the rules. Yeah, they didn't want this to, I mean, like literally, it says, in here, like the Biden administration views this as clearing the way to pass the bill. Like it's just, it's insanity. Like the idea that they're working for America, they're just kind of like dangling this out here. They're trying to get credit for it and putting the blame on the parliamentarian. But the ruling likely makes it easier for the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to get his numbers in line behind the bill, since the raise in minimum wage had been a key sticking point for moderates like Kristen Sinema of Arizona and Joe Manchin of West Virginia. So, like, they're basically making it, because this is where the $1,400 checks are going to come in too. So they're basically pitting, like, well, we definitely need to pass this bill because that's where the stimulus is coming from. That's where the 1,400 is coming from. That's where the stimmy check is. Give me the stimmy. Which I'm all about. Give me the stimmy. Don't get that part twisted. However, at the same time, they're saying, well, now, I mean, what, do you want us to slow down that process and get $15 minimum wage in? What are you, like, why are you against the stimulus? Why don't you want Americans to get checks? What's wrong with you? Are you insane? I've seen people posting that on Twitter already, and it's just such a bad faith argument. Amo Bernie had a post on the quote on this. I strongly disagree with tonight's decision by the Senate parliamentarian, said Bernie Sanders in a statement Thursday morning. The Congressional Budget Office made it absolutely clear that raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour had a substantial budgetary impact and should be allowed under reconciliation. It is hard for me to understand how drilling on the Arctic in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge was considered to be consistent with the bird rule, which is the rule that they're, drumming up to say you can't do this, while increasing the minimum wage is not. He added, referring to the rule named after the Senator Robert Byrd. The rule prohibits including extraneous measures, quote, as part of the budget process that Democrats are employing to send to the COVID-19 relief package to Biden's desk by early March. To be clear, raising the minimum wage is COVID-19 relief, said Representative Pramila Jayapal, the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And in a statement responding to the ruling, she said, quote, we simply cannot go back to into the Black, Brown, and AAPI, Indigenous, poor, and working class voters who delivered us the White House and the Senate majority and tell them that an unelected parliamentarian advised us, based on arcane rules, that we could not raise the minimum wage as we promised, she added, calling on the Senate to reform the filibuster to allow populist and necessary policies like the $15 minimum wage to pass with a majority of the Senate. Yeah. So again, the filibuster is the thing that, like, is the Senate on its face, like the Senate by itself, is already an extremely undemocratic institution from the perspective of, like, states are viewed as equal entities. So, Alaska, which has the least number of people in of any state, gets the same number of senators as, New York and California, which have the most. And Louisiana, which is kind of in the middle of the pack, gets 2 as well. And what it does is it overrepresents land, like area, at the expense of people. So it's a completely, like, archaic institution that's designed basically to like I said before, put the brakes on good policies and kill good legislation that supports people. The Democrat, and it's a bunch of guys and a very few women, just sort of like telling themselves, well, this is what this is the greatest. I mean, have you ever watched any of the stuff that happens in the House or the Senate? they're always like talking about, well, this is the greatest democratic institution in the world and all these other things where, they talk about it like it's some kind of like high-minded, um, thing where what they're really doing is screwing you out of $15 an hour and cutting your, stimmy checks from $2,000 as promised to $1,400 and all these other things. Progressive Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York told CNN earlier this week that she would still support the COVID relief package if the parliamentarian were the one to remove the minimum wage provision, but not if politicians had been the ones to take it out. For AOC, members of their own party removing or lowering the minimum wage would have made the bill fall apart. Ilhan Omar, a progressive Democrat from Minnesota, echoed those sentiments. I mean, that's not great. I mean, the Biden administration basically only like supported the $15 minimum wage as lip service. And again, saying, well, AOC saying, the parliamentarian did it. So yeah, shrug her shoulders. I mean, again, you can't be against the bill. So she's in a really tough position. So is Ilhan Omar. But like, that's pretty weaselly. Well, and again, this isn't saying what she said. And I don't want to like come off as one of the, people who are like super like AOC is the sellout. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But I mean, the stimulus has to go through, and they kind of got us over a barrel in a lot of ways. But I mean, the Democrats could be a lot stronger about this. They could, if the leadership wasn't so cowardly, they could basically say, hey, parliamentarian, fuck you. We're gonna do this anyway. And what's gonna happen? They're gonna go to the Supreme Court or something like that after the checks are dispensed, and then the $15 minimum, they're gonna lower the minimum wage through the Supreme Court. No. So you just need to do the thing. You just need to do the thing, and the Democrats aren't going to do it because they're weak and feckless as usual. And also like materially uninterested in doing this. I mean, that's part of the function of the Democratic Party is to, do the good cop, bad cop. Not necessarily every single member of the Democratic Party is like that, but definitely, the leadership that kind of plays that role. Welcome, S. You can share this stream. You can tell your friends. You can get more people in here. Get that chat rolling. We want more people to be watching Good Morning Comrade and hanging out with us, so we can kind of get this thing lifted off the ground. You can listen to our. You can watch this show every day at 8:00 in the morning, Central Time. I believe in Central Time supremacy. Sorry to all the other time zones, but you're just not as good as us. And I also we also have our podcast feed, which you can find on any podcast app. That is a different release than this. We recently did a couple of brand new interviews. We did one with Jamie Peck from this last week. We have some exciting things to come forward as well. And also yesterday, what's today? Friday? Yeah, yesterday. Robert, one of our co-hosts, and I, we talked at length about the union drive that's taking place in Bessemer, Alabama, at the Amazon parts facility. I mean, at the Amazon fulfillment center, as they like to call it. I want to go and talk about this. Since, we've gone in twice on Joe Biden. We talked a lot about this on the other show. Folks who have watched this show for a while know that I got a thing for unions. I like unions. I think they're grand. They're the I'm a union member. I'm a teacher. I'm right now I'm kind of inactive because of the COVID situation. the schools around me are in session. However, they're taking place in first person. Like, you have friends. Yeah, I'm your friend, G Wolf. Anyway, if you remember during the election, everybody and on Twitter, everybody like in ads, everybody, and I got emails from my union saying that Joe Biden is a union guy. Joe Biden is a union guy. And here's an article from Branko Marcitic in Jacobin, who is he's basically like a Joe Biden scholar at this point. He's written a whole book on Joe Biden. What's the title of that book? I believe it's called Yesterday's Man, where he kind of goes in. I haven't read it yet. I probably should. I just haven't had the time. But anyway, it didn't take long for Joe Biden to betray the labor movement, by Branko Marcitic. After promising to be the most union president you've ever seen, Joe Biden is staying silent as Amazon workers try to unionize in Alabama. It could be because he's just being Joe Biden, or it could be because of the massive leverage and influence the company exerts through its size. So we talked a little bit about this on Thursday. Actually, we talked considerably about this on the podcast. Joe Biden is not showing any support for the workers in Bessemer, Alabama, which is where that strike is taking place. There is tremendous union busting efforts that are in play here. Let's read on. Right now, Bessemer, Alabama is the site of maybe the most high profile union drive in the United States, as close to 6,000 Amazon workers vote on whether to join the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union, also known as RWDSU. A successful vote could make them the first unionized Amazon workers in the country, blow a hole in the South's longtime resistance to unionization, and spur similar organizing efforts across the country, widening the bounds of widening the bounds of possibility. I beg your pardon, for millions of U.S. workers. That's a weird phrasing, but fine. Not surprisingly, the company is doing everything it can to beat back what is also, in effect, one of the most important fights for racial equality of the decade so far. Yet, Joe Biden is missing in action. So, let's read on. Despite the political career and presidential campaign built in large part around the image of a hardscrabble, working-class union man from the belt buckle to the shoe sole, which is a weird thing to say, and despite pledging to be, quote, the most union president, pro-union president you've ever seen, Biden has stayed silent on the unionization battle, choosing not to even condemn Amazon's union-busting tactics. It's in stark contrast to the White House's outspoken support for embattled Office of Management and Budget nominee and union buster. She literally busted a union at the Center for American Progress, which she was the president of, Neera Tanden, with officials working the phones to save the controversial nominee for herself. That's an interesting juxtaposition that Branko put in there, because, yeah, so for the Office of Management and Budget, which is a appointed position by the president, Joe Biden picked Neera Tanden, who is mostly known by people on the left as people who are just like, she like posts mad at them. She's like a wine mom that posts angrily at them about why Bernie Bros will never do anything, or they're just like an impediment to any kind of actual progressive, as she puts it, policy. Despite the political career and presidential silence. The silence isn't out of ignorance, as if that possibility could have been seriously considered. Labor leaders brought the issue to the White House's attention after Biden's inauguration, and a, quote, senior advisor to Biden is keeping tabs on the effort, according to Reuters. We're watching, we see it, we know. We got unions. This is has understandably disappointed RWDSU leadership, progressive activists, and those involved in the effort. There are various possible reasons why Biden is keeping mum. His supporters would argue he wants to avoid the appearance of impropriety, particularly if the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board he appoints, ends up having to rule on the matter. Though this has never been a concern for anti-union conservatives like Senator Bob Corker, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, or former President Ronald Reagan, who are, all of whom have freely waded into the major labor conflicts when it meant crushing workers. So let's take a look at the union busting that's taking place in Bessemer, Alabama, because that's the thing that's wild here. Here's the article from Alex Press. It's in the New Republic. It is called Alabama Town That Could Defeat Jeff Bezos. Some 58,000 people who work in the Amazon warehouse in Bessemer, Alabama, a town just outside of. I can't stop covering this. Like, it's sorry if you're like not interested in it, but I also don't understand you if you're not interested in this. Some 5,000 people who work in the Amazon warehouse in Bessemer, Alabama, a town just outside Birmingham, will receive union ballots on Monday. This is back. This is a couple of weeks ago. This is Dateline, February 8th. Amazon is the second largest employer in the United States and one of the most powerful companies on the planet. Let's see. Does she have unit detection act? Okay. The question of how it's happened is one Bezos is probably asking himself, wondering how his anti-union detection algorithms failed to predict the organizing drive at this location, and one that emerged so quickly. Usually it takes years for the newness of the facility to wear off, while here, not even the $15.30 starting wage, more than double the Alabama minimum of $7.50, could stave off a union push, would happen within months of the warehouse's opening. Where's the busting effort? Anyway, I can explain it. There's they're putting in the bathrooms. This is something that's really wild. In the bathrooms at this fulfillment center, on the inside of the stall. So when you close the door, you have to look at it. They have like anti-union literature up there. They've been changing street lights so that they would have more or less time to address this issue, or like to organize. Like when you're waiting at a red light, they just like make it green and you just go. They're doing anything that they can to bust this. They're spending like $3,200 a day to a co-funded union busting law firm. This is a bad development. Like they're doing everything that they can to break this union. And I agree with G Wolf. Unions need a massive PR campaign to educate people to the benefits. So many people in the South think they're bad because that's what they've been told for 40 years. There's been some efforts for that, and I'm going to actually bring one up in just a second. Something good needs to happen at Amazon. I have no choice but to buy stuff from there. Many people do. I mean, like, it's not a moral question of like, oh, you're bad for buying things from Amazon or whatever. Because if you can not do it, that's great. However, I mean, the way things are, it's cheaper and more convenient to buy things from Amazon. Now, if there is a action called for by Amazon workers that say, hey, this is a day or this is a time where we want you to not use Amazon, I will definitely 100% support that, and I'll not buy Amazon through that very time, even if things are on sale. However, I mean, in a lot of ways, they got us by the balls. They just do, and what you gonna do about it? That's basically their thing, is like, what you're gonna do. We're Amazon, we can get away with it. But to G Wolf's point, there is a pretty decent campaign, and we've talked about them before on the program. It's a outfit called More Perfect Union. And what they do is I mean, right now they've been providing lots of coverage. I'm not sure how long they've been around for, but they've been providing very good coverage of this union drive that's taking place in Bessemer. And so they're posting at Jay Carney. They had a really terrific video. Here, which we should watch.
Fish, big fish. Amazon is that big fish.
The fight that you are waging is not only going to impact people where you work, it's going to send a message to workers all across this country.
It sort of is a domino effect.
The value for it is not only for you singularly, but for the present, the past, and the future. That's why we need you to vote yes.
Even if you are taking on the richest guy in the country, even if you are taking on an incredibly powerful corporation.
You deserve the dignity and well-being that a union can help provide, allowing you to care for yourself and those you love.
The 5-day work week, 40-hour work week, the weekends we enjoy,
Paid holidays, sick days and vacations, overtime, family and medical leave, military leave, safety standards, and so much more.
all of that is the work of unions.
Workers stand up, stand together, and fight. They can win.
When voices have been silenced throughout our history, unions have also been a place to give voice to working families.
If you don't feel dignified and you're constantly fighting for your humanity to be recognized, you're just a shell of a person. You're not fully existing.
I know it's not easy. I know that Amazon is putting a lot of pressure on you to vote against the union. But I hope that you guys stand together, do the right thing, and tell the world that the workers at Amazon are prepared to move forward and create the first union in Amazon in the United States of America, right there in Alabama.
You carry on the spirit and tradition in Alabama that has fought against so many obstacles. You carry on, you're the continuum of that struggle. It is the right thing to do, it is the just thing to do, and God bless you.
Yeah, so that's the good stuff right there. That's like a really terrific video, like making the case for the union. It's like putting public pressure on top of this and bringing public attention to this campaign, and hopefully, as I've said, many times, that we can get something, out of this. Because right now, right now we're, in a spot where we're kind of like on the ropes, and I don't know. All right, we can have one piece of candy before we get out of here. And it's kind of like, I'm almost loath to talk about this, but it's so silly that I kind of can't help myself. It's like catnip. And I don't want to even how do I even do this? All right. Mr. Potato Head. Oh, I'm sorry, not Mr. Potato Head. I guess it's just Potato Head now? Let's see. This is from the AP. Mr. Potato drops the Mr. sort of. Hasbro created confusion Thursday when it announced Leave me alone, AP. Hasbro created confusion Thursday when it announced that it would drop the Mr. from the potato brand's name in order to be more inclusive and so all could feel welcome in the potato head world. It also said it would sell a new playset this fall without the Mr. and Mrs. designations that will let kids create their own type of potato families, including 2 moms or 2 dads. Excuse me. Thank you. But in a tweet later that afternoon, Hasbro clarified that while the brand is changing, the actual Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head characters will still live in the brand sold in stores. In a picture posted on Twitter, the Mr. and Mrs. names were less prominently displayed at the bottom of the box instead of the top. So let me just think about this, because there was part of this thing that happened was that there was this conservative outrage about the the idea that Mr. Potato Head it's a potato, man. It doesn't potatoes don't need to be Mr. or Mrs. There's no gender to it. And there were people like Ben Shapiro and his sister, classically Abby, that oh my God, that decided that this was a problem, right? So here's Ben Shapiro talking about what if Potato Head identifies as a squash, though? Society is truly not free or safe until all potato heads can use the planter of their choice. What the hell are you talking about, man? This is a kid's toy. That's a potato. And you're worried about this being the destruction of the left. I mean, I'm sorry, the family unit or of gender in general. Ben Shapiro specifically is famously refuses to use the proper pronouns for trans and non-binary people, which is a huge, obviously a huge attack. And the idea the idea that you're gonna be a dick about something so ridiculous and so silly and so brand related and so not material is this is why I was loath to bring this situation up, because it just makes me it makes me tired. It makes me annoyed. It makes me very angry and grumpy that this is something that I have to even address. So maybe I don't need to address it, but it's the thing that I can't ignore is that a grown man who loves to talk about facts over feelings and who loves to talk about being logical and science and evidence and all these things, logic and reason, is so up in arms and shitting himself over a kid's toy that's a potato that you can put the eyes where the mouth is. You can put the nose where the ears go. You can do all kinds of customizable shit with the Mr. Potato Head. Why are you freaking out about the gender? You can take the girl's mouth and put it on the boy potato or whatever the hell. It's absolute ridiculousness and insanity. And the idea that this is a threat to the mores of Western culture, which are not even that great. Come on, man. Come on. The fact that you're worried about this is that's the most interesting thing to me. The fact that these people care. The fact that this is worth, filling your diaper over. I don't know. It feels I don't know how it feels. It feels wait, Can you elaborate on this, G Wolf? I've seen calls to secede over this. I guess so they can create their own toys after the war. What? What does that mean? Like secede? Like to start a civil war over fucking Potato Head? That would be crazy. The Great Potato Head War. That would be incredible. I mean, I don't know. I thought I would have more to say about this, but it's just like one of those things where I feel like it's, oh my God. Hasbro appears to want to have it both ways, expand the brand while not killing off its most iconic characters, which appeared in the Toy Story films. They really have a brand balancing act to do now, don't they? Really have a brand balancing act to do. Got to survive. Oh, on Reddit? Yeah, okay. People post all kinds of fucking wild shit on Reddit. I mean, yeah, that's Reddit. Oh God. Oh God. All right. So I think we're gonna end it there for today. Oh, actually, super last thing. I just wanted to announce it quickly. So this show is broadcast out of Jefferson Parish, which is right outside of New Orleans. New Orleans news affects us greatly. And I wanted to kind of highlight this one. The mayor in New Orleans gave a Thursday statement to ease coronavirus restrictions. Larger gatherings are allowed. The city of New Orleans will ease coronavirus restrictions beginning Friday, February 26th, according to the statement. Starting Friday, gatherings up to 75 people will be allowed indoors and 100 people will be allowed to gather outdoors. Business will be allowed to seat up to 15 people at a single table. Wow! So I guess we're going back to normal. I guess the pandemic's over. I guess 500,000 people aren't dead. I guess we're still not getting, hundreds and thousands of cases of COVID in the U.S., but, the mayor's like dying to pat herself on the back. You still need to wear a mask. You still need a social distance. Sure. City officials cited a sustained decrease in the case count, transmission rate, and positivity rate of COVID-19 over the past 30 days, with the city's positivity rate under 2%. That's test positivity rate, I believe, not like number of citizens that have COVID, which means if you're not taking a test, you're not testing positive. The transmission rate, which measures how many people each infected person passes the virus to, is well below 1. The city official said, so we need to make it high. We need to bring it higher. We need to bring it back up to 1. If a virus's transmission rate is lower than 1, each infected person infects less than 1 other person on average, causing the virus to die out in the area as people recovering. Around 50 new cases are reported in Orleans Parish per day. New guidelines will take effect Friday at 6 a.m. So that's already taken effect. The stories from last night. So it was a tweet. You doubt from anyone that has a platform. Yeah, I mean, like, people post shit. Found it was Mark Dice that tweeted. Actually, my friend, my buddy Elron Mexico, had some, as usual. If you don't follow Elron Mexico on Twitter, you should, because he's hilarious. Oh boy, where is it? We don't even have a. Well, he was on the parliamentarian kick, but also, I'm receiving intel that Miss Potato Head severed dick and balls are being held in Nancy Pelosi's refrigerator, leading a strike team of Oath Keepers and 3%ers to retrieve them. Wishes luck. Heartbreaking. My 5-year-old came up to me and said, "Daddy, the Democrats took away Mr. Potato Head. Dick away." And Clay Higgins screaming at his wife. Hold on. Clay Higgins screaming at his wife, asking her, "What's the use of having a gift of premonition if it wasn't going to warn Mr. Potato Head?" All right. That's a wrap for me. You can listen to Good Morning Comrade every Tuesday on WHIV LP New Orleans. It's when the radio show happens. You can also check us out online. GoodMorningComrade.com. We have been doing this show on Tuesdays. I'm sorry, on every day, Monday through Friday. So, I mean, if you ask Andrea, it's not every day, but it's every day. Every weekday. It's daily. At least to start. This is the end of our first week. We did it. We got through week 1 largely without incident. We survived. We did it. We got through it together. So that's good. That's great news. I do want to send you off to somewhere. And most of y'all are going there anyway, but check out friend Andrea's show. She has a show called Above It All, which starts at the top of the hour at 9:00. She's gonna. I'm not exactly sure what she's got on tap today, but she does. You know what I'm gonna post? I already posted it. She is the host of Above It All, which is a really fun program. She talks about the news as well. Check it out. It is Above It All. And then for us, you can support our show, patreon.com/goodmorningcomrade, where you can, help us expand our operations a bit, because we're very, very small and we want to be very big. You can also go check out on your podcast app, Good Morning Comrade, where we kind of have our radio show as well. WHIV 102.3 in New Orleans. So thank you so much. Thanks to G Wolf in chat. Thanks to S in chat. Thanks to anybody else who's watching on YouTube and Facebook Live. Thanks to everyone. Love you. Bye.